8:15 Tuesday morning, and so it's time to go to everybody's favorite Pulitzer Prize-winning Washington Post reporter, David Fahrenthold. David, good morning. And it turns out the people who worship Donald Trump and people who despise Donald Trump have one thing in common: they get mad because we're still talking about Donald Trump. But you say there's a good reason why.
Well, there's two reasons why. One is that he's still basically the central figure of the Republican Party. If you want to talk about the Republican Party, one of our two biggest parties, it's about Trump now. They haven't figured out a way to get past him. Maybe they don't want to way past him. So, he's not elected in anything anymore, but he doesn't have any government power, but he wields a huge amount of political power in that party. The other one is that there's maybe some big legal proceedings against Trump. We've never had a president put on trial ever. And so if Trump is headed that way, either in a civil trial or a criminal trial, it's a big deal, and I want to make sure we're on top of it. Yeah.
You don't have any inkling, though, what those charges might entail, were there to be any?
No. There's three main criminal investigations going on now involving Trump. One is in Georgia about his interference or attempts to overturn the election there. One is in D.C. about his incitement of the riot. And the third one is this one the Manhattan DA is running, looking back at Trump's financial practices. That one, from all we hear, is going to be months and months before there's any sort of decision. I mean, if there's a deadline, it's when the Manhattan DA leaves office at the end of this year. So I don't think any decision is going to come soon.
Yeah. Typically, when a politician gets in this much trouble, people run away like rats from a sinking ship. But he's managed to hang on to his. In fact, it appears as if Mar-a-Lago has become sort of the Trump Vatican, or maybe even the Republican Vatican, because people are making pilgrimages there. What? I guess you would argue to deliberately spend money at a Trump facility?
Well, the biggest reason they go there is because he doesn't leave. He's the central figure in this party, but he basically never leaves his house. He doesn't leave his house except to go play golf at one of his courses. And so if you want to see Trump and get your picture with him and, have some FaceTime with him, you go there. And so not everybody pays. Some people just show up and have a meeting with him. But a lot of people are paying. They're paying to rent the ballroom, rent one of the side rooms, to have a big fundraiser there. And, you understand the logic. If you're going into a Republican primary and either you're an incumbent or maybe you're somebody's trying to knock off an incumbent, you need Trump's stamp. And so the best way to get it is to go pay him some money and rent out one of his ballrooms and hope he drops by.
So who runs the Republican Party now?
Well, in theory, it's this person, Ronna McDaniel. She is the RNC chairman, but she was installed by Trump, and she seems to be going to great lengths to placate Trump. So last weekend, they were supposed to be having an RNC donor retreat at another place in Palm Beach. And because of Trump, they moved one of the big dinners to Mar-a-Lago. So they spent a ton of money at Mar-a-Lago, more than $100,000, just to placate him. And they let him speak for like 90 minutes, most of which was a rant about, Mitch McConnell and the 2020 election and all that stuff. So she's subordinated her, both given her money, her attention, her time, her donors, put them all at Mar-a-Lago in the hopes of placating Trump.
Explain the Mitch McConnell thing. If he's trying to get – McConnell is up, in 2 years?
McConnell is up in 2022, yes.
2022. So if they get rid of McConnell, who takes his place?
I think you're applying strategy and logic to a situation that really may not call for it. I think Trump doesn't like McConnell because he feels like McConnell should have supported his effort to overturn the election. So he's grousing about that and calling McConnell some bad names. I don't think anybody believes there's going to be a primary challenge to Mitch McConnell in Kentucky, or if there is, it'll succeed. So that seems to be like hot air. But the Republicans really want Trump to be nice to their incumbents, people like Marco Rubio, Rand Paul, other folks who are running for re-election, and not basically bring a crazy challenger that might lose in the general.
Well, what about Mike Pence? What's his future?
Well, Pence is laying pretty low right now. I mean, as are basically a lot of the people who see themselves as post-Trump political candidates. Pence has gone back to Indiana. He just hasn't made any public appearances. He certainly hasn't gone to Mar-a-Lago or had any contact with Trump. Trump seems to have basically written him off as, not insufficiently loyal. So, if Pence was the vice president, if he wants to be the president, he needs Trump to get off the stage because I don't think he has the clout to beat Trump. And certainly while Trump is out there choosing who their leaders are, he's never going to choose Mike Pence.
Yeah. Now, is Trump actively running for president, do you think?
I guess it depends on how you define active. He certainly hasn't ruled it out, and he's certainly talking about, in vague terms, running again. But he's not articulating in these speeches that he's made. He's not articulating any sort of real vision for what comes next. What would it be like?
Well, but that's not necessary because he is the vision, right?
But like, I guess if you're aiming at an audience of beyond the Republican faithful, people, 2016, people forget, like, he had a platform. He wanted to build a wall. He wanted to, stop immigration from certain groups. It wasn't a platform a lot of people liked, but it was a platform. It was a vision of the future. And now he's exclusively about the past and punishing people who are in his own party who he feels like didn't help him steal the election. So if you're aiming at a general election audience in 2024, he doesn't have very much of an agenda or a promise about how the world would change.
Is anyone still polling Trump's name as a possible presidential candidate to see what the response would be?
I saw some. It's been like a month, and I think the numbers are over 50% of Republicans would support him as a presidential candidate, which is not huge. I mean, that's for somebody who has the far and away the name ID and the stature much greater than anybody else. It's not a huge number, but it seems like he probably would win the nomination if it was held today. Huh?
Really? Okay. So if he were to decide not to run, then is there any proper heir apparent? I know that Matt Gaetz was dreaming about this. I don't think it's going to happen for him now. So who would be the heir apparent if Trump decides not to run?
Well, I mean, I think there's a lot of people who are sort of kissing the ring in hopes that they will be kissed the ring most fervently and get to be Trump's chosen one. I mean, there's people like Ron DeSantis in Florida, the governor of Florida, who's been very close to him. Also, some former Trump people like Nikki Haley and Mike Pompeo. I think all of them would like to be Trump's anointed, but it's really hard to. I think it's really hard to somebody who makes decisions sort of on a whim. It's hard to know who's going to win that primary. If Trump really doesn't run, probably the primary will be about loyalty to Trump. Is who is most loyal, who would serve Trump's agenda, who loves Trump the most. Yeah. That's what it would be today. Maybe there'll be some huge figure that's not Trump that'll appear in the next year. But if it was held today, it would just be about either Trump or if he's gone, who sucks up to him the most.
Do you think that Joe Biden has made any inroads with the people that he purports to represent, that being the overlooked white working class?
If you look at Biden's poll numbers now, they're good and very steady. He's polling at about 54% approval, about 39% or 40% disapproval. It's been like two straight lines. So I don't think he's growing his coalition at this point, but he's held it steady, which in American politics right now, when there's so much partisanship, people get mad at you the second you step in the door, is a pretty good achievement. And I think if he continues to do things like the infrastructure bill that put more money in people's pockets, put his name on highway projects, employ people, I think he has a chance of winning over those voters. I think Biden, in a low-key way, has actually done a pretty good job politically of like delivering on his promises and making sure people know who did it.
David Fahrenthold, live from the Washington Post. David, thank you.
Thank you.